to learn and strengthen ourselves in the three mitzvahs of women, Kashrus, Shabbos, and Taras Mishpacha, as well as other halachos that are pertinent to women. Our goal is to prepare ourselves and our homes to welcome Mashiach. Tonight's learning is dedicated as a schos for Aviva Bas Chana. Hashem should bench her with Birchas Begashmis and Baruchnias and everything she needs. If you would like to dedicate a class in honor of someone or in schos of someone, please reach out to us via email, projectchanapowerhour@gmail.com. Please join us afterward for Tzedakah, Tehillim, and Mashiach thought. And with that, let's get right into it. So, for our first class in Kashrus, we will be covering a new topic, and that is the Kosher Consumer's Practical Guide for Shopping. We'll be exploring some great tips to help you shop and buy the best food that are not just physically good for you, but also spiritually. We are very grateful to have Rabbi Zibell back with us on our program. He is the Kashrus administrator at the RCF, the Rabbinate of Central Florida, and delivers classes to the general public on various Kashrus topics. He is also highly active in answering consumers' Kashrus questions on a daily basis. Rabbi Zibell is known for his practical grasp and application of Kashrus knowledge, as well as his clear way of explaining halachic matters. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
It's a pleasure, and thank you very much for having me. Good evening. So we're going to be starting part one of the Kosher Shopper's Guide, the practical guide for a kosher consumer. People may say, if I live in a Jewish area and there's fully frum stores, do I really need a guide? But in truth, yeah, even then, a guide is needed, and we'll discuss the details for that. So even if you do live and have the luxury of having stores that are seemingly fully frum and only sell things that you think would be fine, it's still, we're going to bring up things that you could look out for and to make sure they're actually up to a standard that you would feel comfortable. So to begin, we'll start with the general consumer. General consumer may shop in a store which will not be a Jewish store, which will have all types of products. And this could be relevant for anybody, even if someone is living in a frum area like Crown Heights, if they're going to Costco or to Trader Joe's or to Target or to Walmart or other bigger stores where they're doing their shopping, this will come up as well. And obviously, when you're shopping in such a situation, the chance of making error is so much greater. Usually we are extra careful and we pay extra attention. And if there's any logo, a Kashrus hashgacha, which we're not familiar with, we ask. And generally, people are on higher alert when shopping. But even then, mistakes do happen. Things may look similar. Things may change. Someone was buying the same item for 8 years, and it was always OU Parv, and suddenly it changed to OUD. Or suddenly it changed to no hashgacha at all. So we can never be complacent about the fact that something, and just assume something is kosher, especially coming from such a store. And always double check when you're taking it off the shelf. Look at it when you're putting it on the, the conveyor belt, whatever, to check out. Look at it, double check, triple check, just to make sure that you have the right item. The item is still with a good hashgacha, that it's still certified, that nothing changed. Especially when it comes to stores like Walmart or the like, where they don't have their own facilities. They just go to different factories and produce with that factory. So corn could be made one day coming from this factory, which is under hashgacha, and a few weeks later coming from a totally different factory, which is not under hashgacha, and therefore the OU will not appear on the can. And if someone just used to getting great value corn, and they always thought it was fine, but they don't realize that great value doesn't have a factory, one factory. They're getting from all types of different places, whatever place is giving them the best deal. So one day it could be kosher and the next day it cannot. And that's just one example. So we really need to be on high alert and always, even never get comfortable and just assume I've been buying this forever, everything must be fine. In addition, things do look similar. At times, the changing of one small name could make a big difference. I know somebody just reached out to me. They were buying, I think it's called Near East, a company Near East pilaf rice, and the flavor is roasted garlic. And then they got a flavor which was roasted garlic and chicken or something. It was added the word chicken. And the box looked almost exactly the same. It looked the same. And next to the OU, there was a little M that's not noticeable. And that M stands for meat. It was actual fleshik. It's a chicken flavor with real chicken flavor, and it was absolutely fleshik. And they prepared it in milk kalim, and that before they realized it was ready. They already had used it. So, and the item looks almost identical to the one that's par, but just if you notice the extra word chicken, that's gonna make a difference. So there could be so many things that can come up to with paying attention to the details and things looking similar. So that's first of all something to be aware of and to always double check. It takes an extra second. Either way, generally taking a second to take it off the shelf. Why not just turn it for a second just to double check? Either way, putting it down when checking out, might as well. Why not? Obviously, we're in a rush sometimes, but it's worth it because of the headaches and everything else that can happen. If not, that you can end up bringing things in your home, which you would not want. Now, so again, to recap that, you want to thoroughly verify that everything is properly certified and never just assume things are okay. You have to really double and triple check and confirm that what you're getting is actually with a reliable hashgacha and something that you want to be bringing to your home. Now, when it comes to frum stores, depending where you live, there are many frum stores, even within areas that the frum store could be very dominantly Hasidish, but because there's still a crowd within that community that doesn't keep Chalav Yisrael, the store will be carrying non-Chalav Yisrael things, non-Pas Yisrael things, and you need to be aware of that. Sometimes you may feel so comfortable. You look around, everywhere you look around looks like Amish people that are all would be keeping a higher standard, but in truth, they still may be catering to that smaller crowd, and that will be accessible. That is not the case in Crown Heights, or Bar Park, but that could be the case in places like Passaic, New Jersey, or the like, which have had many times consumers which came up with such issues that they went to a store that thought was totally a Hasidic store and ended up with things which were not Chalav Yisrael, not Yisrael, and the like. So that's another thing. And now, even if you are shopping in a store within Crown Heights or Bar Park, a place which is strictly never going to allow something in there that's not Chalav Yisrael, not Pas Yisrael, at times items do make it in, and many times I do get questions from a consumer, does this need to be Pas Yisrael? And when the answer is yes, they say, how could it be? I bought it in the store in Crown Heights. It must be fine if it was bought there. And first of all, the stores do not in any way take responsibility. They're not hashgacha certifications, first of all, so they don't take responsibility for the kashrus of everything in the store. They try their best to cater for the needs of their consumers, and they're trying to sell only items that the consumers would want to buy. However, they're not always on top of every detail. Things do slip between the cracks, and many times they're also not aware as to which hashgachas are good hashgachas, which ones are not, which ones should be avoided. They're not experts, and they're not under a hashgacha which is guiding them. So they're trying their best to try to bring new products, exciting products, and at times those products could on a basic level, meaning not be Pas Yisrael or not be Chalav Yisrael or not have a good hashgacha altogether. Even if the hashgacha says Chalav Yisrael, Pas Yisrael, and as we discussed in the class at length in the classes of eating out without a doubt, that there's a big difference between a standard and the hashgacha system to enforce the standard. So hashgacha could claim on paper that they're Chalav Yisrael, Pas Yisrael, Yashan, all the best terms, but if they don't have a proper system in place to enforce that and a good team of mashgichim that go out and implement that, it won't happen, and you could be getting a product which is highly, highly problematic. And therefore, one needs to be familiar with that as well. That just because a hashgacha says Chalav Yisrael, Pas Yisrael, and has all the Hebrew lettering, and we've mentioned this over and over also in the classes about Eretz Yisrael, that does not mean that it's automatically going to be a good to your standard. And that may many times does end up in these stores, and one who is not informed or not educated won't even realize to look out for it. They'll just shop and think that everything's fine. So just to recap on that, the importance to realize that even from stores, even in Crown Heights, none of them are being run by Hashgacha. No Hashgacha is taking responsibility for them, and they're trying their best to try to make the consumers happy, bring in products that are to a standard, but they are not in any way Kashrus professionals, and they cannot in any way really do the research that's needed to know which hashgachos are good or not. And many hashgachos on the shelves are questionable, or many items could be questionable, and definitely one needs guidance when shopping to know which hashgachos to accept or not. Now, a consumer may feel a bit overwhelmed. So what now I can't even shop. What am I supposed to do? So first of all, like we always mentioned, you want to have a Rav and be in contact with a Rav, which could also give you guidance in Kashrus, so that whenever in doubt, you can turn to your Rav and he can give you guidance. And like we're told, that you make yourself a Rav, and you will remove yourself from doubt, because a lot of doubt and a lot of confusion come from just lacking of having someone to turn to. So it's extremely important to establish that if someone wants to have a stable, strong Kashrus in their home, they should have someone they can turn to and ask questions to and get general guidelines and standards as to which hashgachos they should be taking and so on and so forth. That will give clarity. Second of all, we have to realize that as consumers, we have something called the shopper power, that kosher consumers have a very significant power. The fact that in shaping what the store is going to sell. At the end of the day, the store is there to sell to the consumer. The stores want to make the consumers happy, and if consumers keep bringing up concerns and saying, "Well, this item we're not comfortable. Why are you selling this item? We're not comfortable with this item." If they keep hearing that, they're not going to sell that item anymore, because why would they want to be selling something that consumers are not happy with? So really, by having collective action, many people raising awareness and communicating with the store and saying, bringing it up that really we don't feel comfortable with this item, you can definitely ensure that the store will make the standard higher, and which will ultimately affect everyone. There will be products with a higher standard, and it's always strongly suggested that then you're the consumer. The store is here to serve you. You're really the one, when you walk in, everything is there to try to get your attention and to make you happy, to give you a good experience. So as a consumer, you definitely have the upper hand, and when you do see something, to go and to mention something, you can make a very big difference. And it's been seen time and again when various consumers do speak up, the stores ultimately end up figuring out ways to make it work and to find other products that will satisfy the consumer's needs. Now, in addition, being familiar with the different hashgachos out there and having a list of which hashgachos are acceptable could help somebody just to be in tune. Just to give an example, it could be, I think it's still currently happening. I don't know if it was yet removed. It could be it already was removed, but for a while, in many stores in Crown Heights, they were selling croissants from a certain company. I believe La Brioche was the company. And the company generally, for the plain croissants, has the MK Manchester based in Kashrus, and it says Pas Yisrael, Mezainis, with Hebrew letters. But the chocolate ones, just chocolate croissants, those had a different hashgacha. It had an NWK, Northwestern Kosher, or something along those lines. Now, someone who was paying attention to details would right away figure out, why does one same company made in the same place, why does one have one hashgacha and the other have a different hashgacha? And consumers approached me and asked, and I reached out to the MK. The MK told me, actually, the NWK is a logo that we use when something is not Chalav Yisrael. So those other ones with the chocolate chips are actually not Chalav Yisrael. The chocolate chips are DE, dairy equipment, non-Chalav Yisrael equipment, and therefore we use a different logo. But the issue was that they were still writing on it Parv and Pas Yisrael and Mezainis and Yashram. So someone who just saw a different logo, but under the logo it said Parv and said Pas Yisrael. So it seemed like everything was fine. And the hashgacha said, yeah, we're calling it Parv because it's a Parv ingredient made on dairy line, and we're just putting the NWK logo to let you know that this is a dairy non-Chalav Yisrael item, but that it's par ingredients. So it was a very confusing way to be labeled, and this was being sold in stores and still being sold. I don't know about in Karnai, but definitely in many frum areas, and it's still being bought, and I've seen it in many homes. And people just don't realize. But just noticing a nuance. Why does this product have a different logo? It must be a reason. And then that same brand company, La Brioche, has a different product, which has a totally different hashgacha. Why is that? There must be a reason why they, and those two hashgachas are not reliable at all, not recommended whatsoever. So realizing, just picking up on nuance and having your eye open to these details could help you as well as a consumer to be able to know what to ask and when to ask. In addition, when shopping, just to mention a quick rule, which is a play on words, but or just a way to remember it. I'll quickly share my screen just so people can see it, to visualize it as well. But many times people say, "What do you mean? What could be wrong? Everybody shops at this place. Everybody eats this product. I saw this product in every home. How could there be any issue with it?" So I'll just quickly show one quick thing. So there's the concept of it's called Kosher. I don't know if everybody sees it. Kosher, which stands for Kulam Ochlim Kulam Shotin, which means everyone drinks this, everyone eats this, and this Kosher idea, people many times based on that will just buy it because I saw it everywhere. That's where it's seen, but we cannot follow that concept. So we need to really realize that we should be educated ourselves and make an educated choice when buying, not just following like what everyone else does and what you've seen everywhere else, but to actually look into it and make sure that it is actually to a proper standard. Now, another mistake which happens at times is that people don't realize which products need hashgacha or not. And you hear this, and someone said this, and then you find out, say, yeah, this is fine. I was told this is fine without hashgacha. I just had a phone call not too long ago. Someone reached out to me and was speaking to me about one thing and said, yeah, I mean, just like, for example, French fries don't need hashgacha, right? Because it's just cut potatoes. And I stopped them right there. I said, French fries need a very reliable hashgacha. First of all, all French fries are already pre-fried. So you have the question of what oil they are using. Very commonly, they could be fried in an oil that can contain animal fat to give it extra flavor. And if not, at least the factory that does those French fries could have had previous batches that had animal fat and no one koshered it. Besides for other questions of Bishul Yisrael, which could come up with French fries. So French fries need a very reliable hashgacha, and it's not just a piece of cut potato. And the consumer was like, "Oh wow, I never realized that." And they read the bag, and it's even clearly on the bag in ingredients. It says potatoes and vegetable oil, but what was the base? Because they were once told that the frozen fruit that's cut is okay, and from that they deduced that frozen vegetables that are cut are fine, and from that they assumed that's frozen French fries. And this person said that they heard it from others, and they know dozens of people that use that. And someone comes in question the pans that they use in the oven and who knows what. So not to just also assume that some items are just fine without hashgacha, but that always to double check which item has hashgacha or not. And this includes all types of shopping, including going to a coffee shop, even going to Starbucks, even getting a black coffee at Starbucks. We're going to have maybe a class just for that. But even something like that, even if you know everyone's doing it, there could be many shilas, and it's something that could be very problematic and not so simple off the bat, and should definitely be avoided unless you get very clear guidance from a Kashrus expert. Another thing which can be confusing at times is you can have a store that has a major part of it under hashgacha. Let's say the butcher department, and there's a sushi department in there, and a bakery department, and a deli department. All those are under hashgacha, and many things in the fridges as well, salads and all types of dips are under hashgacha. Then suddenly they have a section of things that are not under hashgacha. So they'll have a whole bunch of salads, greens that have no hashgacha. They just have the store's label. But because the person's so used to already buying so many things by the other areas of the store with that store's label that did have hashgacha, they'll assume that also all those greens have hashgacha, when in truth they don't. So it's very, like I said, very rarely is there hashgacha is going to put hashgacha on the entire store, on everything in the store. It's a lot of work and a lot of it's a very big task to take on, and most hashgachas won't do it. So just because the store has on many departments, you have to really check everything else as well. It doesn't mean that all other products in the store are with a good hashgacha. Similarly, at times you may have an ice cream store, and if you read the certificate carefully, the ice cream itself that's being served is under hashgacha, but nothing else. And the ice cream store that's selling candies and candy bars and gum and all that, they could have, they could be under hashgachas, which are weak hashgachas, not reliable hashgachas, and the person assumes, what do you mean, there's a certificate on the door, the store must be under hashgacha. And this could be as well in a butcher shop, which is selling meat under hashgacha, and they have some packaged items which are under a different hashgacha, and the hashgacha is not covering those items because they're packaged with a different hashgacha, and they assume that the consumer should know that, but really the consumer may not know that. So we'll wrap it up here because it's a bit late, but just a few things to start off to be aware of when shopping.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Zibell. Wow, thanks for shedding light on this important topic. Okay, for our next class in Hilchos Shabbos, we are excited to continue our series on Amir Lenachari, part 12, where we will be continuing to discuss non-Jewish help on Shabbos with Rabbi Braun. Rabbi Braun is the Marid Asra of Kern Heights, and we are very grateful to have him on our program. Thank you so much for making time to be here tonight.
And as I always say, my absolute pleasure. I just came in at the tail end of Rabbi Zibell's shir about Kashrus, and I just wanted to comment about something, which the way it relates to Amir Lenachri. I just overheard one line. I didn't hear before, didn't hear after. I'm not sure the context, but it was addressed the idea that sometimes you see everybody does something and you think if everybody's eating this and everybody is drinking this, then it must be okay. I think that's what I heard. So it reminds me of an anecdote that I once heard, and we'll soon get back to our subject matter, where there was a restaurant in town and somebody was trying to find out whose hechsher this is. And eventually he's digging, nobody knows. Eventually he asks someone says it's under the hechsher of Reb Allah. Reb Allah gives the hechsher over here. Reb Allah, never heard of such a Reb. I heard of OU, K, Chav K, Star K, CHK, etc. Who's Reb Allah? Reb Allah, Allah means Allah Essenda. Allah, everybody eats over here. That's the hechsher. And how that relates to Amir Lenachri, because we mentioned right in the onset that Amir Lenachri, the poskim mentioned that a lot of people are lenient when it comes to telling a guy to do work for you on Shabbos. And the assumption is because everybody is doing it, it's okay. So much so that it says that in certain aspects of Amir Lenachri, in general about Amir Lenachri, that you shouldn't protest against those that are violating this precept because they won't listen. It's better that they should be doing it out of ignorance rather than they should do it deliberately. You tell me now loud, and they still continue doing it. Obviously, that doesn't apply when we're learning the halachos because we want to do the right thing. It applies when you see someone doing it on Shabbos. So let's go right into it. We spoke last week about the idea of that not only you're not allowed to tell a good to work for you on Shabbos, but Chazal took this Isser to an extreme and made a rule that if a guy does work for you on Shabbos, even if you didn't ask him, you can benefit from what he did, and not only you can benefit on Shabbos, but you also can benefit after Shabbos the amount of time that it takes to do that work. More about that last week. You could look it up on the archives. But let's go back to the subject of this week. So if a guy, following on that theme, if a guy comes and brings you an object and he carried on Shabbos, it's a deraisa, assuming that he carried from the Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, or he carried 4 amas in the Rosh Hashanah, so you can't benefit from it. Other people can't benefit from it. Even if you didn't ask him, he did it on his own. You can't have this food. You can't have this object until after Shabbos, the amount of time it takes for him to schlep it. Now, just to put things in perspective over here, sometimes it's possible that the guy doesn't have to go through Rosh Hashanah. Just to give an example. For argument's sake, let's assume that 770 the Eastern Parkway is a Rosh Hashanah. I'm not going to the technical aspects of that, but I just want to use a mashal over here. And it was Geshmak Hisa Kugel upstairs in 770 in the small Zal upstairs. And there's a very simple way you can go from the upstairs of 7 to the downstairs of 770 without going into the street. I'm not even talking about the lady shul, I'm talking about the men's shul. The original 770 and the basement, the downstairs of 770, which the Rebbe didn't like when they used the word downstairs. So, but for lack of any other word, the lower level of 770. So you want the kugel from upstairs. There was a few trays of kugel. The guy walked straight out into the street, brought it right back into 770. But he could have just went through the steps. But that's a different story because it could have been done better. But if you have to bring something from 770 Eastern Parkway across the street to the other side of Eastern Parkway, again, I don't like the word other side either, to the second side of other side of Sitracha, to the second side of Eastern Parkway, then a guy did malacha for you, even if you didn't ask him. If a guy would be going through a caramelist, an area where you're not allowed to carry midrabanan, so you can't benefit from it, other people could. Now, the common question we have is about packages that arrive on Shabbos. Amazon. Today, Amazon is the buzzword, and every person either works in Amazon or gets packages from Amazon. It's either or. So you can have objects that come to you in the mail on Shabbos. You never ask them to deliver it on Shabbos, but for some odd reason, it's always Shabbos that it happens. So there's a few issues we have to deal with. Number one, there's the issue of Tchum Shabbos. So the item could come from outside the Tchum Shabbos. Nothing to do with the fact that they were driving, which is Isser. Nothing to do with the fact they were carrying, which is another Isser. I'm talking about the fact that you can't take, even if they wouldn't be, even they would be walking all that way. And even if they wouldn't be carrying it, and there would be an Eid around the entire world, for argument's sake. But you can't take something out of the Tchum. Now, if something comes out of the Tchum in a place where there's no Eid, which is then the halacha is, then you could only keep the item within the 4 amas. So your house is like 4 amas. So if it arrived in your house, you can't take it out of your house. So this is relevant on Yom Tov, even though we think Yom Tov you're allowed to carry, but since it came out of the Tchum, it can't go out of your house, which is like 4 amas. Even on Shabbos, which you anyhow can't carry, but the Tchumen adds another dimension. The Isra of Tchum Shabbos is that you can't even wear it. So technically, even a place where there's no Erev, you're allowed to carry derech malbush. Your clothing is not considered carrying. But if something came out of the Tchum Shabbos, you can't. So, and this is very, very common. You got a beautiful, nice dress, and it arrived on Shabbos. So Yom Tov or Shabbos makes no difference. You can't put on the dress and take it to shul because it arrived on Amazon from Amazon on Yom Tov, and it's a beautiful Yom Tov dress. No, you're not allowed to do that. If there's an Erev in the place, then the entire area which is surrounded with mechitzas. Well, I said before, imagine if the whole world would have an Erev. It actually wouldn't be true then, because then it wouldn't be the issue of Tchum Shabbos. Because any place around which has mechitzas is considered 4 amas. But once it goes out of your house and you're going into the street, it's Yom Tov. You're allowed to carry in the street. Doesn't matter. Tchum Shabbos. You're wearing it. You're allowed to carry things when you're wearing it on Shabbos. Doesn't matter. Tchum Shabbos. You can't take it out of the Dal Dams. That's one aspect that we need to deal with. The second issue is Isser Hana that we started talking about. And then I need to introduce a concept which we didn't touch on, and I don't know if we will touch on it. A middle anachri is extremely vast, and I don't know if we can touch on every single area of it, and it's a bit complex. But there's a concept called a kablan. A kablan is someone who's a contractor who doesn't work for you, he works for himself. When someone gets paid by the hour or by the day, we call that a skir yoim, a day worker. So he works for you today and he gets paid today. That means he's working for you. When someone gets paid for the job, he does a job. He's a cleaner. You give your suit to the cleaners and you pick it up. And he gets paid for washing a kapata, $20. So he's working for himself because has already a set amount of how much he's getting. He doesn't have a set time. He's not being paid by the time. He can do it on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. It makes no difference when he does it. So when a guy does a malachif on Shabbos b'kablanis, even when a guy is a kablan, he's a contractor, he's working for himself, you're not allowed to ask him to do it on Shabbos. And again, I'm not going to the dinim of kablanis right now, but technically it's not called the guy working for you. I give my stuff to the cleaners. The cleaners did it on Shabbos, didn't do it on Shabbos. I'm assuming it's a goyish cleaners. That's their business. I didn't ask them to do it on Shabbos. I didn't give it to them right before Shabbos and tell them I need it back right after Shabbos, which means they're going to have to work on Shabbos. I gave my car to the mechanic, whatever the case is. He's not working on my premises. I didn't ask him to do it today. Everything is perfectly fine. However, if he did do it on Shabbos and you got it on Shabbos, you can't have benefit from it. So you have a very nice goyish neighbor, and he's sewing up a a nice, beautiful outfit for the wedding. And he's a Kabbalah. He does it on his own time, in his own premises, in his own time. And then he comes to you on Shabbos and says, oh, I got you. Here's the outfit. So even when he's a Kabbalah, on Shabbos itself, you can't benefit from it. The halach is b'shas adchak, and desperate situations really need an outfit and you have no other outfit to wear, then we can be lenient by benefiting from what a Kabbalah did. Till now, everything we've been talking about that you can have benefit when a guy works for you is when a guy is working for you. When he's a contractor, he's not working for you. He has his own time. He can do it whenever he wants. So even when it comes to a Kabbalah, really you shouldn't benefit from it on Shabbos, if you finish a job on Shabbos. But when you're desperate, you'll not have benefit. So let's go back now to the items that arrived in the mail on Shabbos. Now, I'm not talking about a present that a guy gave to you on Shabbos, or a guy is coming and selling you something on Shabbos. So items that arrived in the mail where I did not ask him to come do it on Shabbos. They could do it whenever they want. I'm not having any particular benefit directly from the fact that it came out of the tchum, from the fact that he carried, that he drove, and all of that. So in such a case, we'd arrived on Shabbos, and he's doing it on his own. There's no concern that I'm going to ask him to bring it to me on Shabbos, because the guy got his money, that Amazon is getting their payment, whatever it is, the payment was already established in advance. And so I can't take it out of the tchum. Okay, sorry for all of that. This must be something very important what we're learning about, that we're having all this bilbulim over here. I was on right from the beginning of the Tillim, but I just couldn't get myself unmuted. Let's go back. So we were talking about assuming that he bought something for you and he only carried it in a karmelis, not in a reshus harabim, then other people could benefit. So I hope the idea of the Amazon packages was clear. We had a bit of a disturbance there, but the basic idea was that there's a tchum Shabbos issue, you can't take it out of your house. And there's another idea that if it's something that the guy knows that he's bringing specifically for you, like a food or something like that, and he knows what it is, then you shouldn't have benefit from it even in the house. I want to go on to talk about overnight shipping for Shabbos. It's coming from the other angle. We spoke now about when you get an item on Shabbos, and now I'm going to talk about when you're the sender, not when you're the recipient. So part of the idea of Amidal Nachri is that you can't have a guy work for you and contract his work in such a way that it'll have to be dafka on Shabbos. So Shabbos, when you're going to the post office and ask them to send something, you're making sure specifically that's on Shabbos, that means you're asking them to work for you on Shabbos. Now today we have a lot of internet orders and we have a lot of shipping options, and we have a seller that's shipping us an item and it comes on Shabbos. That means the seller, did we ask them to do for us on Shabbos or not? So let's talk about it like this. There's something called overnight packages. Overnight packages means it's definitely going to arrive on Shabbos. So when you're talking about an e-commerce site, we have something called amira la-amira, because usually what happens is when you're getting from an e-commerce site, you're not getting it directly from the seller. One non-Jew is giving instructions to another non-Jew, which even though you're really not allowed to go to a guy and ask a guy to tell another guy to do a malacha for you, but there's still a bit of room for leniency. So going to a site and ordering something to come on Shabbos, there's one aspect of leniency, because usually it's not the people on the website that are going to deliver it for you. They're going to tell another guy who's going to tell them to turn another guy. But it's still not so straightforward. Part of the heter also could be, when we're talking about this kind of shipping, that you gave them the instructions before Shabbos. The workers that are handling the packages don't even know that they're working for a Jew. So these, again, all things to make it a bit better, but really it's a very, very hard to be mastered it only if you're really desperate situation. And a Rav has to be asked if you really want to make an overnight shipping that should be definitely delivered on Shabbos. Usually, when you do a regular shipping, you don't have to worry about it, because usually there's a number of delivery days, and Shabbos is one option, doesn't have to come on Shabbos. Even when you're going on the website and you're typing in that you're clicking the button where it says expedited shipping, that does not mean it's going to be made on Shabbos. In fact, if you look at a lot of the sites, it says that it's based on availability. It says it's limited to business days. Even when you're doing a two-day shipping means it could come Friday or Shabbos, or it could come Shabbos or Sunday.
So therefore, it's when you dafka doing an overnight shipping, and it's dafka going to come on Shabbos for sure. That's a whole different story, and it's hard to be lenient. I mentioned some reasons why you could be lenient in desperate situations, but normally that shouldn't be done. Like express mail, and all that kind of stuff. And finally, I'll mention one more question. I know I'm going 1 minute overtime to make up for lost time, and I apologize for the whoever's giving the sheet right after me. I'm coming off right away. A common question is, you have a non-Jewish driver that's going to pick you up on Matzah Shabbos, either by the Zman on Matzah Shabbos or a while after the Zman, but I know he's actually going to be traveling on Shabbos. So you're in the Catskills, and you're calling a company, a Kosher company, and till they get to your bungalow colony, that it's going to take some time. And if you schedule them to come 10 minutes after Shabbos is over, that means they're going to be driving on Shabbos. So it could even be if it's an hour after Shabbos, it might take them some time. Are you allowed to do that? The answer is yes, you're allowed to. The work that he's doing for you starts when he comes to your place. The fact that he schlepped on Shabbos all the way, that's his business, because he could have stayed there on Shabbos. He could have been in the country on Shabbos. That's his choice, that he decided that he wants to stay in the city on Shabbos and then come to the country after Shabbos. Of course, if you're talking about a Jewish company, it's a whole different story. One of the reasons that I've had a problem with people traveling El Al on a Matzah Shabbos, today's day and age is different. El Al, I think, is owned by from people. The circumstances might be totally different, but generally El Al, because it's a Jewish company and there's Yidden working for you, and there's Yidden that are preparing the flight on Shabbos, that's a whole different story. You're getting a Yid to work for you. Here we're talking about the idea of a middle and achri, we have a guy work for you. So if I didn't specifically ask him to work on Shabbos, I asked him to do a job for me Matzah Shabbos, even though he might have to drive, that's his choice. He doesn't have to drive on Shabbos. He could have decided to stay in the country after Shabbos. I apologize again for the issue with the stability of the internet, and we'll continue the mitzvah next week.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Braun. Thank you for breaking down this complex topic. Okay, so for our next class, we're excited to continue on part 2 of our new topic of Birchas Hanehenin, Birchas before and after eating foods. It is something we all encounter many times a day and can definitely use some clarity on. So thank you very much, Rabbi Bell, for being back with us. Rabbi Bell is the Rabbi of the Congregation of the Baptist in Montreal and the Dayan of based in Montreal. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for the opportunity to once again address the union of brachas. So last week we started the topic of mezenes, and we'll basically finish the topic today. Cannot exhaust all the different types of foods and different manifestations and recipes, but just in general, some general guidelines. So in the Shulchan Aruch, there are 3 different categories of what's called pasabo bekisnin. This is not including things which are like pancakes and things which are battered form, which are also mezenos for different reasons. We're talking about when you're making a dough out of something or baking something. So then we have pasabo bekisnin. So the Gemara says that the bracha is a mezenos, not a meitzi, even though it's pas. So pas is a type of bread in a way, but since people don't normally make a meal out of it, the bracha is mezenos unless you do make a meal out of it. And there are 3 definitions that are brought for what would qualify as pasabo bekisnin. So in the Shulchan Aruch, and even in Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, it brings all 3 of those definitions. And the Shulchan Aruch says that it's permissible to rely on any of these 3 opinions. But in the Siddur, which is the final word from the Alter Rebbe brings only 2 of the 3 definitions. So we'll bring briefly the 3 definitions we started last week, the 3 categories, and some examples of each. So the first one, as we mentioned last week, is the opinion of the Rambam, who says that if you use liquid other than water, so then people don't normally make a meal out of it, and therefore the bracha would be mezenos, again, unless you did make a meal out of it. So that's the different types of mezenos bread and these sort of things. Cookies that are made with flour from the 5 grains, but nevertheless, the water content is, the liquid content is not water, it's another type of liquid, whether it's oil or it's shortening or it's eggs. It's also considered to be in the halacha category of what's called mepedes, which is literally fruit juice, but it could be any non-water liquid. If you have a mixture of water and other things, so then you're in a a gray zone where it's going to depend. If you have a mixture of water, and when it comes to tea or coffee or different things, then it's a different story. It's not necessarily considered to have left the category of water. So to reconstitute a juice is a common misconception that that's judged as a mixture of water and juice. You would have to have the juice not from concentrate in order to satisfy this requirement. Included in that, the Rambam mentions that if you put in different sorts of tablin, which is, for lack of a better translation, spices, so onion powder, garlic powder, or even chocolate, different sorts of non-liquid additives that would change the taste, could also be counted to transform it from being regular bread to be a mazenis. How much of that you need is a matter of controversy, whether it has to be a majority of that additive or whether it's just strong enough that people would not make a meal out of it. And it should be avoided. Reb Chaim says you need a majority, others disagree. So in general, when you have things like crackers, so usually they are made with some shortening or some other liquid, and the bracha would be mazenis. There are, however, I'll go straight to the third opinion of the three, which is that if you make something which is very, very thin and dry, and people don't make a regular meal out of it normally, so that is also called a mazenis, according to Rav Haigon. That's a third opinion that the Alter Rebbe does not quote in the Siddur, which is the final word. And the Reb Chaim brings down that the reason he didn't quote it because he doesn't hold that that's sufficient to make something a mazenis. So I remember once I had a box of crackers, and it was whole wheat crackers, and it said Birchas mazenis. It was a good hechsher, and I took a bite out of it. It made a mazenis. I said, "This tastes like a matzah." And I looked at the ingredients. Ingredients were whole wheat flour and water. So it tastes like a matzah because basically it was a matzah. And the reason the Rav Amachsher wrote mazenis on the carton was that, according to this third opinion, it's a mazenis. But Alter Rebbe doesn't paskin like that. So one has to be careful, even if it says explicitly what the bracha is. So I think I might have mentioned last week that you have many Sfardim that the entire year they make mazenis on matzah based on this psak din, and only on Pesach because of the chshivas that's given to it because of Pesach. They will make a meitzi on it because of the Yom Tov, but otherwise they would make a mazenis on it. But we make a meitzi on it the entire year. There's somewhat of a controversy, similar in a way with pretzels. Pretzels, there are different ways of making pretzels. So I personally haven't really come across them, but I'm told that there are pretzels that are made with flour and water. So those two are made to munch on, and according to that third opinion, they would be a mazenis. However, according to Alter Rebbe, that would not seem to be the case, and they would be a meitzi. However, and I've seen many of these madrichim, they make lists of brachas and write about pretzels being a shayla of a meitzi. However, the pretzels that I've seen in general are made with shortening or some other sort of liquid content, and they wouldn't be worse than a cracker. Of course, if you come across a pretzel that's made with water, then it's a different story. You have different types of these melba toast, masa bread, and all of these sorts of things. So if the liquid content is not water, so then, or the majority of the liquid content is not water, if it's a mixture of water and oil, for example, if there's more oil than water, it would be a mazenis. If there's more oil than water, then you would make a meitzi. Okay, so that's all I basically covered the first and the third definition. The third one we don't hold like, and the first one that we do. Now, the second category, the Alter Rebbe holds in the Siddur, is the unanimous opinion. Although in the Siddur it doesn't come out like that, and there are poskim disagree, but he holds that according to the final psak, that everybody would hold it's a mazenis. There are those that disagree with the Rambam. We paskin, you can make a mazenis, not a problem. But a bal nefesh, a person that's especially careful, wouldn't eat that unless it's in the middle of a meal of bread. So the second definition, let's come to Rabbi Hanehenin, other the other early authorities that the word kisnin comes from the word kis, which means a packet. So we don't really have too many foods that are exactly like that today. And the reason is this kis, we don't look at the outside, which is made with flour, and it could even be made with flour and water, but because the inside is fruit or something else which is sweet, so then once it's baked together, so you have a raw dough with a filling, when you bake that together, so then that makes it possible of a kisnin, and everybody holds that that's a mazenis. Now, this would be only if it's filled with something sweet, and the reason you're eating it is laden or latainik, the Alter Rebbe says, just for enjoyment. You're not eating it in order to fill up. You're eating it primarily for the filling. And in addition, Alter Rebbe is in Siddur. He adds this to the Shulchan Aruch. It's a very interesting lashon. I'll soon speak about babka, rugelach. It's very relevant over here. The Alter Rebbe says that the mili hu ha'ikir, that the main ingredient of this is the filling, is what's on the inside. And umazan ha'isa hu tafel, and the wrapping outside, the dough outside, is secondary to the filling inside, and that's why it's a mazenis, even though the outside might be made with just flour and water. Now, you might be thinking about knishes and burikas and egg rolls and things like this. So in general, all the foods that we have today that are in this configuration, the outside, the dough on the outside is also made not just with flour and water, it's made with some other sort of, whether it's oil or shortening or something else. So that would already be a mazenis, regardless of what the filling is. So that's why in general you have a potato knish or something of this nature. They're in general they're mazenis because the outside dough is not made with water, and that would already be a mazenis, not because of the filling, but because of the dough itself, according to the first opinion we mentioned before. But if you have closest I think we have to this something like a pie. If you would have, you'd make a pie crust, and let's say it would be flour and water, and you'd fill it up with blueberries and put it in the oven, something sweet like that. So though it's not really totally a kis, but nevertheless it has a filling, and one could say that that's in that category. We have turnovers, which are like that, but again, the dough of the turnovers that we have in general do not have water as their sole liquid content in order to make the dough. Now, when it comes to, I mentioned before, rugelach and babka, things like that, different sorts of cakes, there are people that I know, I've had this question a number of times, that they make a dough for challah, and then they take the leftover the dough after they make the challah, and then they take that and they make rugelach out of it, or babka, something like that. So here the same thing is on the table. You're serving it for challah, you're making a meitzi on it, you're taking the exact same dough and you're making a dessert out of it. So what exactly is the story? So according to the Alter Rebbe, if you could fit this into the category of pasaba bekisnin, because it is a milui, it is a filling, you're wrapping it around something. But again, there are different types of rugelach and different types of babka. You have cinnamon rolls, all these things that there's sugar and there's cinnamon, different sorts of fillings inside. So yes, a person wouldn't normally make a meal out of them, but on the other hand, it's not sufficient that the person is just eating it because they like the taste. It has to be sufficient amount. It doesn't need to be a rave. This doesn't go according to the quantity. It's not that we need more. Let's say you make a chocolate babka. So there are those that make one that's more dry and it's almost completely dough, and there's just a little bit of filling inside. That might be questionable. You have others that are very, very rich and thick, and it's clear that the main thing is the filling. Now, even in the one that's drier and it doesn't have as much filling in it, so also you're not, if you want to have bread, you eat bread. You want to have rugelach, a babka, whatever it happens to be, a cinnamon roll because of the filling, but it would have to be sufficient that filling is the main thing about the food, to the extent that the dough is secondary to that. So it doesn't have to be more than 50%. It doesn't go by quantity, but it does go by the the general tzura, the way it's being prepared. Now, there are other reasons where something might be a dough that's even made just with flour and water, and there might be other reasons that you're going to make a mezenas and not a meitzi. The time it becomes a meitzi if it's baked. Halachically speaking, if it's in a pan without liquid, that's also called baking. And according to the Alter Rebbe, even if you put a little bit of liquid on the bottom, but the function of the liquid is only to keep it from sticking to the pan, it's also as if it's baked. So if you have a dough of flour and water and you fry it in a pan, but you just put a little bit of oil to keep it from sticking to the pan, so then that's considered to be baked and would be identical to bread, and the bracha would clearly be a mezenas, a meitzi, excuse me, because it's as if it was baked. However, if it's boiled, so if you have pasta and it's just flour and water, but since it's boiled and not baked, the bracha is mezenas. If you have something which is deep fried in oil, the fact that it's covered, that in English we call that fried, but the lashon tigun, halachically speaking, would not apply to such a case. It's bishul. Bishul is when it's surrounded by liquid from the top and the bottom. It doesn't matter, halachically speaking, whether it's oil or water. It's considered to also to be as if it was mavushal. So donuts, which are deep fried in oil, even if the donuts would be made solely with flour and water, they would also be a mezenas. So too, if you have different types of fried noodles, Chinese noodles, if they are indeed fried, deep fried in oil, so they would be in the same category. You have certain types of croutons that are like that. Other types of croutons are made out of bread. It would be a meitzi if you ate them on their own, but those that are deep fried would be called bishul. Something which is fried, tigun, halachically speaking, according to the Alter Rebbe, is in between the minimal amount of oil which is put on the pan to keep it from sticking and being totally covered, which is called bishul. When it's just an in-between amount of liquid, that's called fried, and it's machlekes a poskim how it is you look at it. Again, I'm not going to be ma'arich on this, that we don't have too many foods like this. In addition, if something was originally unquestionably bread, and then you made a meichel out of it later on, so let's say matzah brai or French toast. So this was clearly bread. Let's say you have a challah kugel. So in general, matzah brai and French toast is going to be a meitzi. The fact that you fried it in a pan, in general, does not take it out of its category of being bread. Challah kugel will depend how it is that it's made. Alter Rebbe has a very unique shita in this regard, and if you want to make a challah kugel that should be a mezenas, then you're going to have another shir just for that. So too, another factor that could affect whether it's a meitzi mezenas is the texture. So blintzes, for example, or pancakes, although in general, most of the recipes have another sort of liquid other than water as well. There are those that have, there's mufletas that they make here in Montreal that have only flour and water, but the texture, again, it depends on how thin the texture is and how thick the result is. Just also mention, in general, we say that when it comes to mezenas, it has to be from the 5 grains, but not everything from the 5 grains is going to be a mezenas. It's going to be a mezenas if it was baked, ground into flour and baked, or if it was cooked with water and became nismach and became dissolved. What happens if it's not like that? You have wheat berries or puffed wheat or something like that. So in many cases, that would end up not being a mezenas. That would be an adama, because mezenas is only after it's become a tavshil or become a more chashuv, more respectable, for lack of a better word, type of food. So sometimes it could be from the 5 grains, and nevertheless, if you have oat flakes and you didn't cook them, so then it's just the grain itself which is sliced. And if it was never cooked before, so then that would be an adama. An exception to the rule, the Gemara mentions eires. which is unique in that the bracha is mezenis, but the after bracha is shahakol. So if one made bread out of eires, you would make a mezenis on the bread, and you would make a shahakol afterwards instead of birchas hamazon. The problem is that we don't know what eires is. We know you can pick up at the Hebrew dictionary and it'll tell you eires in modern Hebrew is rice. But the Alter Rebbe says it's a suffix whether it's rice or millet. And as a result, the Alter Rebbe says that the best thing to do is to eat rice only in a meal, because we have a question whether the bracha is a mezenis or an adama. Because if it's eires, if eires is rice, so then rice is a mezenis. But if eires is millet, then the rice is going to be an adama, or in some forms it might even be a shahakol. So Alter Rebbe says the best thing is to eat a pesach hasuda that you wash on bread, and then it's obviously covered by the bread. If not, the Alter Rebbe says that one should make a shahakol, because the shahakol works for all cases. There are those that say that you should take a mezenis and take an adama and make all these separate brachas. Rabbi Marlo Vashalom recommended that. There are other Lubavitch Rabbanim that say that since the Alter Rebbe does not recommend that best thing, he gives you two choices. He gives you a meitzi, or he gives on real bread, or a shahakol, and they hold not like that. But again, this is a differences of opinion among the Rabbanei Chabad. And I think we'll end here, and next week, as Hashem, will go on to other brachas.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Bal. That was really clear. Okay, so before we conclude with some reminders, we would like to take a moment to turn to all of you, our listeners. If you enjoy these important and practical weekly classes, do consider partnering with us to help keep them going. We rely on and appreciate all contributions, any amount. You can log on to mikvah.org/donate and select Project Chana Power Hour so that it goes towards this program. Thank you so much. And now just a few quick reminders. If you appreciate the classes, share them, family, friends, or anyone else that you think would like to hear them. All playbacks are available on mikvah.org/power hour and also on all podcast platforms. Just search up Project Chana Power Hour. And if you have any questions on the classes, or you would like to dedicate a week of learning in honor of someone or Lila Nishma someone, please reach out to us via email, projectchanapowerhour@gmail.com. And very much lastly, thanks for hanging on. We'll see you again next week. May our learning prepare us in our homes and bring all of us, every Yid home, to Eretz Yisrael with Mashiach.